Have you ever felt like just another face in a giant lecture hall, or maybe even just a name on a screen in an online class? Well, you're definitely not alone. There's this growing sense of isolation in higher education, a real crisis of connection. So let's dive into this. We're going to explore not just the problem, but some really fascinating and practical solutions.
And wow, this quote from a University of Arizona report, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's all about authenticity. Are institutions actually listening to what students need, or are they just broadcasting? That one question is pretty much the difference between a community that feels alive and one that just, exists.
And that lack of connection, it has some pretty shocking consequences. Get this. A study at Fort Hays State University found that 61% of their online students felt connected to none of their classmates, not a single one. I mean, that's more than just a missed opportunity. It's a huge breakdown right in the middle of the learning environment.
Okay, so let's really unpack this crisis of connection. We're going to look at the data, but also the human stories that show just how deep this problem goes on our modern campuses, whether they're made of brick or pixels.
Here's a theme we're hearing over and over again from faculty and from students. The whole university experience shifting. Instead of this big community-building journey, it's starting to feel more transactional, like you're just buying a service. And that really chips away at the very idea of what a campus community is supposed to be about.
And while feeling like you belong is a challenge for pretty much everyone, the data shows this massive quality gap. On campus, you've got 70% of students feeling connected to their peers. But for online students, that number plummets to just 47%. That's a huge difference.
Behind every statistic, there's a person, right? This quote comes from a non-traditional student, someone in their 50s going back to school. They're not on Facebook, and they just feel totally left out. It's such a powerful reminder that community isn't some one-size-fits-all thing, and a lot of students, especially adult learners, are being left behind.
Okay, so what have schools been doing about this? For years, they've been running from what you might call the traditional community playbook. Let's take a look at the established strategies.
For the physical campus, you know the drill. We're talking about those high-energy move-in days and welcome weeks, the bustling activity fairs where you sign up for a million clubs, mentorship programs, sports teams, and of course, the free pizza at department lunches. These are the classic face-to-face things that have been the backbone of student life forever. And then there's the bigger picture stuff, the top-down strategies. Things like using inclusive language and diverse photos and brochures, running diversity and inclusion training, and partnering with local organizations. The goal here is to build an environment where everyone from every walk of life feels like they truly belong from the moment they step on campus.
Now, all those traditional strategies are great. They're important. But we have to ask, what happens when they're just not enough? This is where we need to talk about the limits of that classic playbook, especially in the world we live in today.
And here it is, the million-dollar question. How do you run that playbook when the campus isn't a grassy quad, but a login screen on a laptop? This is exactly where those time-tested strategies just break down for the millions of online and remote students.
The pandemic was this massive, sudden experiment in remote learning. And what did we find out? According to that Fort Hays study, the tools universities grabbed first, things like Blackboard and Zoom, well, they weren't built for community. In fact, instead of helping, students said these platforms actually made them feel even more isolated. And that's because they're tools for instruction, not real interaction.
But, the failure of those old tools has really opened the door for something totally new. So let's explore a new vision for a digital campus, one that's built from the ground up for real, authentic, online community.
To build this new digital campus, we really need a different kind of internet. Right now, we live on Web2. Think of it like a digital world made up of giant walled cities owned by a few big companies, like Facebook or Google. They control everything. The shift is towards something more decentralized, a model built on networks that the communities themselves own and govern.
So how does a university actually do this? Well, one really powerful way is through a model called Social Network as a Service, or SNAS. This basically lets an institution create its own private, secure social network. Think of it like building your very own digital campus quad with your rules and your brand, instead of just renting a tiny corner of Facebook's giant public park. And this quote just nails the philosophy behind it. This isn't just about cool new tech. It's a movement. The whole point is to put the focus back on people and their connections, not the profit goals of some giant tech company. It's all about empowering the community.
All right, let's bring this all home. By actually owning their digital space, universities can finally start to solve this problem of isolation. They can build a community that's strong, that's integrated, and that works for all students, no matter where they happen to be logging in from.
I love this. It's a direct call to action from Linkspreed. It's a challenge, really, for institutions to stop outsourcing their community, their most valuable asset, to other platforms. It's about deciding to build and own your own digital future. That's the first real step.
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, it boils down to a few key steps. First, you have to define your community's purpose. What's the why? Second, you choose a platform that lets you own that space. Third, you intentionally create a welcoming environment. And finally, you invite people in and give them the tools to build real connections. It's a move away from just consuming content to actually creating a community together.
And this right here, this is the ultimate goal. Because at the end of the day, all the technology, all the strategy, it has to serve that fundamental human need to feel like you belong. The whole point is to create a digital space that gives you that same sense of connection and identity as being there in person.
And when you get this right, the results can be absolutely transformative. A purpose-built community finally closes that gap between on-campus and online students. It builds stronger ties between faculty and alumni. It gives the school control over its own digital destiny. And maybe most importantly, it provides a real home for all those non-traditional learners who've been left out in the cold for too long.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. We all say it, right? A university is more than its buildings. If that's really true, then what does your institution's digital campus, or maybe its lack of one, say about its identity? What does it say about its values and its real commitment to all of its students in the 21st century? It's something to think about.